Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and online violin tutor. So in this video, I want to talk to you about double stopping. Now, I'm going to be taking one of the lessons, lesson 28 to be exact, from my 1 to 30 violin course. Now, this is book 3. Book 3 covers lessons 21 to 30. This is the second half of book 3. Book 3 actually comes in two halves, so this is lessons 21 to 25. This is all about third position, and 26 to 30 is all about kind of more advanced techniques. Just before we go any further and jump into the video, I just want to mention my brand new website, www.onlineviolintutor.com. Now, this is a brand new subscription website where once you have signed up to be a silver member, you will get access to hundreds of sheets of violin music. I'll put a video up here of the kind of music that you can that you can get a hold of. But when you visit the website, there is a little blue button that you can click on that will take you to a PDF spreadsheet with a list of all the songs that you'll have access to, all the pieces of music. And there is a huge variety on there, everything from there's some classical music on there, there's some modern pop, old pop, there's just too many to mention there. There's around about 800 of sheets of violin music, which has all been arranged by myself over the years of me being on YouTube since 2011. So that is in my back catalogue, and that is available to those of you who are silver members. Along with that, you get access to some violin backing tracks. A lot of those accompany the sheet music that is in the sheet music folder. There is some easy piano music in there as well, and there's a lot of MP3 performance covers that I've done from my performance channel that I also have as well. So it's $10 a month subscription to gain access, and you can cancel at any time. It's completely up to you. But there's also a private community forum as well, so a forum that I'm on. If you've got any questions or anything that you think that you want to ask any other players, everybody can benefit from. I'll be there answering questions as well. So if you've got anything specific, you can put them on the community forum. Everyone can read it. I'll be responding to it as well. So you'll only have access to that as a silver member, which is $10 a month. And also along with that, you'll get access to blog posts that I put out on a weekly basis. Okay, so if we start by looking at lesson 28 on page 15, we're going to be talking about double stopping. Now, a lot of you talk about double stopping and how you can do that. So obviously you need to be a little bit advanced to be able to do the double stopping. This isn't something I would recommend you do straight away. Obviously, I'm assuming that you're going to be at lesson 28, or you're going to have at least done a little bit of double stopping. So how I cover double stopping in my book is that I kind of split it into double stopping for beginners, intermediate and advanced. Now I'm just going to talk about double stopping for beginners. So the best way to do double stopping is, we've spent a long time now trying to isolate the strings and trying not to hit any other strings, and now we're being told that we have to hit strings and play two strings together, which is something that we've been trying a long time not to do. So the easiest thing that you can do, I think, is just to practice playing two strings at the same time. So you can isolate the G and the D, isolate the D and the A, isolate the A and the E. Now, there is a little bit of information in these books, obviously, that you can read, but what I would advise to you before you move on to the exercise, the Dance to Dragon on page 16, is that you just practice. Oh, a little bit out of tune there. And so on. So however you want to do that, just practice some of your double stopping, so that or practice playing two strings at the same time, so you get used to that. You can kind of make up your own exercise. Whatever it is that you choose to do, you really do just want to make sure that you are consistently playing those two notes. So you don't want it to be, you want it to be. Push a little bit harder down on the string, a little bit harder. Don't push too much. or you're going to get that. Play the 2 strings together and push a little bit firmer. You should probably find it a lot easier to keep the bow in contact with the 2 strings. It's actually quite easy to play 2 strings because if you're playing the G and the D, they are kind of both in line with each other. So you'll see what I mean when you put the bow on the string. But if you put a little bit more pressure on the bow, it's easy to keep the consistency down. There's a fine line between putting too much pressure on the bow because you don't want to get that kind of sound. Okay, so once you've done that and you've tried that a little bit, then you can go onto page 16 and have a go at Le Danse du Dragon. And this is just very basic double stopping. So there isn't really anything exciting in this. It is just basically where you're going to be playing the G and the D strings, the D and the A string, and the A and the E string. And there might be some fingers that you need to stop down as well, but it will be easy stopping. It starts getting complicated when you have to put, for example, your 3rd finger on the D string and your 2nd finger on the A string. So that's when it looks a little bit like that. But have a go on the violin and you'll see what I mean. If you put a lower finger on the lower string and a higher finger on the higher string, for example, so if you put a 2nd finger on the D and a 3rd finger on the A, that's much easier to do. That's so easy to do. But if you do it the other way round, where you're putting a 3rd finger on the lower string and a 2nd finger on the higher string, what's the problem? You've got to make sure that 3rd finger is tilted right above so that the kind of padded bit of the fleshy bit of your finger does not hit that upper string. And that's when double stopping gets really, really complicated and really advanced, and really where you need to make sure that your nails are really, really short, or you're going to have a problem with that. But basic or very kind of beginner double stopping is just where we might just be usually just playing open strings, or we might be playing open strings. We might be playing an open G string, and we might be just putting the 1st finger on the D string. Nice and easy. Everybody's happy. So I'm just going to play a little bit of Danse du Dragon for you on page 16. Okay, so that probably sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, but in actual fact, it isn't. It sounds more impressive than it is, I think, just because you're playing 2 notes at once. But when you actually look into what the notes are that you are playing, it's a lot more easier than that, because like I said, you're either playing 2 open strings like you are on the first 2 notes, and then the second 2 notes you've got an E flat on the D string and you've got an open G. So it's not like your fingers are going to be playing anything complicated. What I sort of say to students is that look at each note individually. So for example, the first note, the top one is an open D, the bottom is an open G. Is an open D complicated? No, of course it isn't. Is the open G complicated? Absolutely not. So just play an open D and an open G together. That's not complicated. Then that repeat, and then the next note is an E flat. Is an E flat complicated? No. Is a G, open G, complicated? No. So play an E flat, play an open G, play the 2 together. So do you see what I mean? If you think about the notes individually, then it actually doesn't work out to be that complicated. Obviously, you don't want to be doing that with every single note straight away. So looking at going a D and a G, think of a D and a, you want to be kind of assimilating the information a lot quicker. But that's how I tell people to understand it in their mind, because they're too concerned and they're too bogged down with it being really, really complicated. But just look at the notes individually. Are they complicated? No. So why would they be complicated when you put them together? As I said, it's only complicated if it was the other way round. So if you had, for example, a 1 on the G string and an open D. That's complicated because this finger here needs to make sure, or I need to make sure this finger here does not tuck down on the D string, otherwise I'm going to get the wrong note. I'm not going to get an open D. I'm going to get a funny sound of the half the skin of my finger hitting the open D string that I don't want, and that's going to obviously distort the sound. So the other thing is, when you are playing double stopping, is that mostly it's going to be down at the heel, or especially for this is down at the heel because it's very... So you want to be flat bowed when you're doing the double stopping. So I recommend that you just play everything flat bow as much as possible. It's hard enough trying to get 2 strings to sound at the same time, and then when you're trying to tilt the bow as well, trying to get all fancy and make it tilted, that makes it a lot harder as well. So I would just get as cleaner, nicer sound as you possibly can, and just play with the bow completely flat just to start with, just so that you get used to playing 2 strings at the same time. Then after that, if you feel a bit bougie and you feel a bit fancy, then you can start kind of tilting the bow and changing it. But definitely for something like this, you don't want to be tilting the bow. You can, but it's not quite as fitting for the song. So this is flat. This is tilted. The whole thing is just a lot softer when it's tilted. I don't know how much of that was coming across on my microphone, but it's a lot softer when it's tilted. It doesn't have that big bite to it. So for something like this, you'd want that bite to it. So manipulate the use of playing with a flat bow. When you're playing with a tilted bow, anything is going to give you a much softer kind of feel to it. So I would say probably a good 70% of the time I will be playing with a tilted bow, because that's just how most of the music I play kind of lends itself. But if I want to play something a little bit more furious, a little bit more to it, for example, a little bit more bite, a little bit louder, then I'll go in and I'll play with the flat bow. Often as well, because you're playing a little bit further down towards the fingerboard, so usually I wouldn't recommend playing this kind of close. I'd normally recommend sort of playing more or less halfway in between the bridge and the fingerboard, which you can see here. So this is generally where I play. A lot of people say that you should play close to the bridge. Personal preference. I don't like playing close to the bridge because it gives that kind of fingernails on blackboard kind of sound. And I just don't like the way, I just don't play that close to the bridge, and I don't think you need to play that close to the bridge unless you want to do play something really loud, but then that's going to be going with a lot more of your weight behind the bow, so that's different. But I would say on a sort of 70 to 80% of your playing time, you want to be more or less playing in the middle. Now when you do the double stopping, you want to be playing kind of closer to the fingerboard. The closer to the fingerboard you get, the softer the sound gets as well. So again, another reason why you really want to hit the bow hard and play it flat bowed as well, and especially for this piece, the Dragon Song, whatever, on page 16. So when you're playing nearer the fingerboard, the strings are generally flatter, which is why a lot of people play near the fingerboard as beginners when they're first starting out. They hit a lot of the other strings, not only because they haven't got their arm angle correct with the bowing, but also they're playing too near the fingerboard as well. So you're going to hit a lot of the other strings. So if you bring it back to the middle, the higher up to the bridge you go, the more angled the strings are, which is good. But when we want to do double stopping, you pretty much want to bring it down close, a little bit close to the fingerboard, so that the angle is flatter and it's not quite so curved. It just helps you out a little bit. So I really hope you have enjoyed this lesson and a kind of little peek into the inside of my tutorial books and what they teach you, and they really do go into a lot of depth. I kind of wanted to prove to you that my course does exactly what it says on the tin, and it does guarantee you playing, and you know, this is why it guarantees the playing, because I've thought of everything, I've covered everything. This is a culmination of 20 years, 25 years of actual private teaching with students that I've just bottled up and put into a book. So all the details to buy the book will be underneath this video, and of course the first 10 lessons and all the resources that you need are absolutely free. Nothing's locked down or anything like that. You can get all the way from lesson 1 to lesson 10, and I guarantee you'll want to move on to the rest of the package. So that will be linked underneath as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.